Captain America is in my top 5 favorite Marvel characters. But what if I told you John Walker fills a role that Steve could never fill? Today, I want to talk about comic John Walker and MCU John Walker and explain how both versions show us another side of what it means to be Captain America and something about ourselves. John Walker in the comics is a little bit different than the MCU version. He starts off by being Super Patriot. He wants to be seen by American people as their new symbol. Just as John starts his superhero adventures, Captain America is on a mission overseas and kills a man. This news spreads everywhere and S.H.I.E.L.D. tells him that he's a normal citizen, so he has two options. Joins S.H.I.E.L.D. and the charges are dropped because he'll be an agent of American government, or option 2, he gives up being Captain America. What I think is interesting how the MCU uses this concept for John Walker. Although in the show John was an agent of the government and uses brutal force, in the comic, Captain America has no choice but to use a gun to kill a bad guy and save thousands of lives. John Walker as Super Patriot puts on this event telling the people that Captain America is washed and outdated and has to use guns to kill people now because he's so old and so washed. Which is a really weird sentiment to me because Captain America used to use guns a lot during World War II and during his prime, so it's really interesting how people turn on Steve over one killing that he does. As John Walker's having this speech, 3 guys in Captain America mask come on stage and try to beat up John and call him a traitor, that there's only one symbol of America and it's Captain America. John is easily able to defeat them and everyone cheers on and it makes him look really good in front of the American people. We later find out that John hired these guys so that way it can make him look even better and people would want him to become the new symbol of America. After thinking about it for some time, Steve decides that he's going to give up being Captain America because being under control of the government would take away his freedoms of going anywhere he wants and helping people any way he wants to. And he doesn't want to be a puppet for them, so he decides to go out and starts helping people in his own way. So now that Steve is gone, the government needs someone else to replace Steve. And John Walker ends up getting the job, along with his friend who starts off being Bucky, but then decides to become his own hero, called Battlestar. John immediately starts training how to throw the shield and tries to copy all of Cap's moves. Then they are sent on their first mission to stop an extremist group in John's hometown. And this is when I kind of see a little bit of John's character. You see, he has a little bit of a conundrum, because these extremist groups believe in some pretty strong things, and John agrees with all of them. But he still decides to stop them because the government told him to. So John joins the group to infiltrate their ranks, and Battlestar purposely gets kidnapped. So they're about to hang Battlestar, and John is once again conflicted, because if he saves Battlestar, his best friend Lamar, then the mission is ruined. So he decides to let Battlestar try to figure it out and hopes that his friend can get out of it. And this scene, obviously, is a huge point of the difference between John and Steve. Steve was a man of the people. What he stood for, what he believed in, was always helping everyday people first. While John is a man of the government. He believes that the mission comes first, and if the mission is successful, America is successful. I can also understand the other idea that John just believed in his friend's abilities, but it's a small moment that stuck out to me. They end up taking down the extremist group, and his friend escapes, and John questions what would have Steve Rogers done in that moment? What would he have done in that situation? And John questions if he's living up to the legendary name and title. Then John and Lamar go on more missions. While on these missions, we get to see John's personality more and more, as he begins to feel pressured about being Captain America. The idea of him having to constantly keep this up and constantly be perfect starts to weigh on him. One mission while trying to take down a bad guy, John gets frustrated while holding back and starts to rage out and just beats the absolute crap out of this guy. He claims it's because of all the pressure he feels and how he's just overwhelmed at the moment. A Mutant Registration Act is put on place where mutants are forced to be registered, and John and Lamar went on missions to round up mutants. So they're chasing down this one guy, and he's about to get caught, but he's afraid because he isn't even a mutant. He just accidentally got his powers through an experiment, and John is not sympathetic at all. He doesn't care what the guy has to say. He says, listen, that's for the courts to decide. It's not for me to decide. You look like a mutant, so you are a mutant. And while this is happening, Lamar begins to question what they're actually doing and what this means for everyone. You see, Lamar begins to realize that the Registration Act for mutants is just a way for the government to profile people and also just be racist to them. And what difference does it make for someone who is born with powers versus someone who gains powers? And he begins to question these missions and the authority that the government has. While John really never even thought about it, he was given a mission, a role, and he just does it. Eventually, the people who John first took out and infiltrated kidnapped his parents, and he asked the commission, the government, if he could postpone their current mission and go save his parents. And their answer is no, the mission comes first. So John finally disobeys his orders and goes to save his parents himself. And he's about to save them both and starts fighting the cult, and they start shooting at him. And in the middle of this shooting, both of John's parents are killed. And John completely loses it and beats and kills all the members of this cult. And from this point on, John is completely off. When John gets back to the commission, he's about to get removed as Captain America for the disobedience that he's shown, but they decide that they've invested too much time and money into his development, so they decide to let him stay as Cap as long as he follows his orders to a T. He goes on missions after missions after missions, and he does exactly what the government asked him to do. He's no longer trying to live up to Steve Rogers. He's completely given that up. He knows that he can't be that, so what he decides to do is be rageful, angry. So on these missions, he beats up people, he kills people, he claims that his hope in humanity left once his parents were murdered. He even goes on and starts threatening villains' parents, walking up to their doors, knocking on them and saying, "Hey, let your son know if he decides to do this again, I'm going to kill him and everyone he loves." John has completely gone off the rails, killing people left and right, and the commission is like, yeah, we can't really cover up all the murders that John's doing right now, so he has to go. So the commission's like, he's too much of a problem now. It's not even worth our time. While this is happening, John and Lamar go on a mission to stop Flag Smasher, and he asks for Captain America. So when John and Lamar arrive, Flag Smasher immediately realizes that this isn't Steve. And so he captures John and asks for the real Captain America, and if the real Captain America doesn't show up, he's going to shoot John in the head. So where's Cap at? Well, after quitting, he became US agent and started doing what Cap does, helping people. And also, he questioned himself during this time. Why didn't he fight harder for the title of Captain America? Why did he give it up so easily? And he realizes that it's just a title, and if the title gets in the way of his main goal, helping people, then it's okay. Battlestar shows up and asks Steve to help him, so Steve goes to stop Flag Smasher and actually ends up talking to him, and Flag Smasher begs Steve to help him. And once again, this is a huge difference between John and Steve. John didn't even question Flag Smasher, didn't even give him the chance to speak, and immediately started to beat him up, while Steve talked to his villains and actually listened and understood what they were doing before bashing their skulls in. Smash tells Steve that there's a lot of people that are going to die unless he helps him, so Cap leaves and John is freed. Cap finds out that Red Skull was revived and is the cause of all of this mess. Him getting in trouble for shooting that guy overseas, him losing the mantle of Captain America, John being chosen for Captain America and destroying his legacy, all of this was Red Skull's doing. All of this was Red Skull's way of completely ruining Captain America's life. Once this is all over, the commission decides to give the title back to Steve, no strings attached. But Steve refuses, telling them that the title of Captain America means nothing to him, and if it holds him back from helping people, he won't take it. And this is where John kind of starts to grow on me. After all the roasting John did to Steve about how he's outdated and how he was the better choice to be Captain America, he stops Steve in the hallway and explains to him that he can't handle the pressure. All this time of having this title, the pressure, the expectations, the legend of Captain America, he can't live up to it all. And no matter how hard he tries, he couldn't even come close. So after John gives this speech to Steve decides he'll take the mantle back. And during a press conference where the title goes back to Steve, John is assassinated. After all the struggles, the missions that John went on, he was shot on stage. And right when John was about to turn a new leaf, after he had learned his lesson, he is shot. Well, not really. You see, like I said earlier, the government said they invested too much time and money into John to let him go. So they convinced John that they were going to give him a second chance. If he fakes his death, gets a new identity, and becomes an undercover operative for the American government, then he could be redeemed. And John, after losing everything, says yes and becomes US agent, where he joins the West Coast Avengers, sent by the government to make sure the West Coast Avengers stay in line. So John's life is reporting back to the government about what the West Coast Avengers are doing, and he hates his life. Him and the other Avengers don't really like each other, so John's left asking, what's his purpose? What's the point of all of this? What was the reason he started his journey? He thinks back to how he joined the strength experiments in hopes of helping his country, how he became the Super Patriot because he thought he could help his country even more, how he became Captain America to be the strength of all the country and lead them to a better tomorrow. But at the end of all of this, his family is dead, his identity is taken away, and his title of being Captain America is taken away as well, and he's left here being a babysitter for the Avengers. Why? What was the point of all of this? And what's the point of him? And this is the part of the character that I feel like the MCU has in common with the comics. John has really never had his own choice in life, just going to the next thing he's told to do, and following orders. He never really gained anything that filled him. He thought the titles, the suit, the shield would fill him and give him an identity and purpose he was always promised, but he found nothing in these titles, just more emptiness and pain. And this might be crazy to say, but I've always liked the MCU John Walker. The idea of a soldier being chosen to be Captain America, the perfect man falling from grace and being dishonored for doing his job, is an incredible story. This might be crazy to say, but he never really seemed like a bad guy. He was overhated because all we knew was Steve. But see, John never met Steve. He only ever saw the history books, the legendary tales, the version of Captain America that was unstoppable. He never met the good man behind that. So to John, the idea of Captain America was perfection, which was the beginning of the fall from grace. If you lived for more than 2 days, you'll know that it's impossible to be perfect, and it seems like the more you try, the further away you are from this idea. Now here's the difference for John. He was already a soldier who served, and based on his performance, the government was telling John that he was perfect. So in his mind, the things he was already doing made him perfect, and what he had done up to this point was Captain America worthy. So now the whole world was telling you, you are perfect and you are Captain America. Except for 2 people. Sam and Bucky are constantly telling John that he doesn't deserve that shield, and that Captain America isn't a government role. But he doesn't listen because the whole world's telling him that he's perfect. The government can't be wrong, the whole world can't be wrong, you are Captain America. You go on a mission and your friend dies, and there's a threat. So what do? What you've always done. You eliminate the target, just like you've done before 100 times. So you expect the world to thank you, like it did before. You expect the government to give you a pat on the back and send you on the next mission. But no, you're the enemy, a threat, a failure. But what changed? What caused the switch? You did what you always have done. You protected America and avenged your friend. So why is it bad now? Now you have no honor, no best friend, you have nothing. The world hates you, the government abandons you for being a good soldier and doing your mission. You aren't perfect. You're a mistake. This is John Walker, and I feel bad for him, for his fall from grace and his story. What a lot of people will say is that John Walker is the Captain America that represents today, and I will agree with that. But what I want to add to this is this idea of he's a controlled Captain America. He's a Captain America without the Steve Rogers. Like I mentioned earlier, John Walker was always searching for that thing to fill him, to give him purpose, and he thought with the title and the fame of Captain America, he would find his purpose and his struggles would fade away. But it only exposed his emptiness, and without the government being on his side, he was nothing. What America was built on was this idea of growth. It was founded on this idea of pushing past what existed in the world into something new. Its history is riddled with terrible acts that have impacted generations. But now that we are a part of America, we need to change it. A true America isn't found in the past. It's found in the future. And I'm not saying to forget the past. A big part of growth is looking at where you were and improving on it. The idea of America is to forge its own path, one that looks different from any other nation. And now the idea of conforming to your nation and your leader is downright un-American. The founding fathers saw the flaws in their system and believed in their own thing, so they decided to go with their own path, which is what Steve Rogers is modeled after. The people first, the government after. Somehow this idea got switched, the government first and the people second. And this is what John Walker is, a man who followed blindly and got betrayed for being a good soldier. But now John's arc is the next step in what America stands for, second chances. His path is no longer following the government blindly, but fighting for people and gaining a better understanding who they are as individuals and finding out who John Walker is. And once you find your value, you can help society, not the government. John failed and screwed up. In realizing you aren't perfect, you can begin to work on the dark parts of yourself and improve. But also, you are on the same level as everyone else, and once you're on the same level as everyone else, you can help them where they are. Steve never saw himself as greater than anyone else. He thinks he's just a kid from Queens. The title of Captain America was nothing more than a vessel for his message, which even Steve realized he didn't need. So by Steve being a man, he could help everyday people and fight their battles. And once John was taken off of his high horse, he's able to see the true struggles and battles that happen every day to everyday people. I would say where John Walker's at right now is the closest he's ever been to being Captain America Steve Rogers, yet also the furthest away he's been. Because the world doesn't need another Steve. It needs a John Walker. And the world doesn't need another anyone else that you're thinking of. It needs another one of you. John Walker is a man who helps others, and by being flawed, he can now help those in his shoes and inspire them instead of being praised by them. So what's the message of this video? Don't die trying to imitate someone else. Learn who you are and then be the best version of yourself you can be, and realize that there's no such thing as perfection, only growth. Love you guys. Talk to you later.